Good afternoon, everyone. This is Osiris. Your girl is out on the move, on location, in the lovely home of Miss Soul Magazine, is what I like to call her. Miss Regina Jones has been so wonderful and cordial to invite us over to do our show today. Hey, Miss Jones.
Hi, welcome. I'm glad to see you too.
Oh my goodness. And I've spent some time on the phone with her, so hearing her wonderful energy and then meeting her in person is just as exciting when I first spoke to her. So let's get right to the question now. For those of you youngins out there that don't know anything, Miss Jones, Regina, is the founder of Soul Magazine that was started back in the 60s. I believe the year was 1966 to be exact. Is that correct?
You're exactly correct. April 1966.
April 1966. Now, you were a police dispatcher, and hubby, who eventually became hubby, was working at the radio station KRLA and KGFJ. Is that correct?
He worked at both of those stations.
Okay, and then you, some kind of way, went from being a police radio dispatcher to the founder of Soul Magazine based on an idea, I think, that you said in the article your husband had.
Well,
talk to us about that.
It's a little different than that. Ken and I got married in high school. I was in high school, and we struggled because we quickly had 5 children.
Oh, whoa.
And, he worked a couple of jobs, and after the 4th child was born, I got a job, and I was working a job. And then the Watts riots came in 1965. Mm-hmm. And he was a reporter, and radio reporter, but he was also working the Huntley Brinkley Report out of NBC in Burbank.
Okay, I remember the Huntley Brinkley Report vaguely.
But his capacity was more like a gopher. He ran the film from the airport to the studio and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So watching Watts burn from one of the radio stations up on Sunset Boulevard, he came up with the idea of doing something wonderful for our people. And he came up with the idea of Soul Newspaper. Mm-hmm. And it manifested 9 months later, which is really kind of funny, in April of '66, his idea, I was the bookkeeper. I approved the idea. I thought it was a good business opportunity for us to give a shot to, and I would handle the books, and he handled all the creativity and everything. So I was working at the police department. He was still working for the Huntley Brinkley Report. He was still reporting as a news reporter for radio stations, and we started Soul. And we started it, I guess when it was about 3 months old, we moved it out of the office where he had been working with the radio station right here to the dining room table in this house.
And that's the best way, that's where true Hollywood stories are born of.
Right.
Now, speaking of that, let's compost a little bit, because we know that you, with Soul Magazine and a little bit about the history, I wanted to bring people up to par that don't really know anything about the background at all. In today's culture, do you think a magazine like Soul Magazine, I know we still have Ebony and Jet, and I don't know if they were seems like you guys were ahead of Ebony and Jet.
Ebony and Jet were here before.
They were here before, so they started, what, in the 50s?
Probably, maybe even the 40s.
Oh my goodness.
But who we did precede that more people can relate to would be Rolling Stone.
Oh.
Soul started a year before Rolling Stone started.
Okay. That's good to know. Now, that was not, I didn't see that anywhere, which is great information to have. Mm-hmm. So post Rolling Stones, post Soul Magazine, do you think a magazine like Soul Magazine would be relevant today? And another part to that question would be, we've got so many subcultures now. We've got this magazine, we've got things online and all of the different things. Do you think that a magazine in today's time would be specifically targeted to a black audience? Would it be specific to a black audience if they were to start a Soul Magazine today? Or would it be subcultured out? Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand it, but I'm really trying to process it, and it's a lot going on in our world right now, mm-hmm. and I was fitting it in there. Number one, a grassroots publication like a Soul couldn't even begin in this time and economy and with the struggles it takes to begin a small business, because if you're not large and you're not properly financed, it's almost impossible to start something like a magazine. Mm-hmm. You could start an online publication in this day and age, but not a printed one on the newsstands. Mm-hmm. Just the nightmare of distribution
Which you guys put out 5,000 copies, I think you said, on your first
Very
run.
first issue, we put
That's
out
right.
5,000, and we were just here.
Okay.
And, you know, then we grew to add other markets, and eventually we were all over the United States. And Ken came up with a very unique marketing idea. He affiliated with KGFJ here. So it was KGFJ Soul. When we went to San Francisco, we were KDIA Soul. What this did is we put their call letters on the cover of the newspaper.
Right.
And also gave them 2 pages for marketing inside. And in exchange for that, we got on the air publicity that Soul's coming out, check your newsstand. So people were waiting for it to come out on the newsstands. That was a brilliant idea he had, and it really worked.
It really did work, especially for those times because there weren't much addressing them. But right now, it seems that everything is being put under the category of urban. Like everything is urban, so that means anybody can be urban if you can talk the urban way and
don't get me started.
Do the urban thing, then you got to be urban. And I want you to get started because people need to know the history of what we're trying to cover up and make it urban. It's a history and it's a people and it's some action that came behind that period, not just it's 2016 and we're all urbanish now.
Well, it's funny when I look at the cover of the first issue of Soul, is our whites stealing Negro soul or Negro music. Before that, I was a little girl. I was colored. By that time, I was a Negro. Then we became black, and then we became Black American, and then somehow or another we got condensed into urban. You know, I'm still black. Most people refer to African Americans as themselves.
That's right.
I'm black.
Right.
I'm not African American. I'm black. I choose that because it's the identification that appropriately delineates who I am and what I am about.
Absolutely. That leaves no room for any other shades.
Yeah.
Except
You can ask me a million questions. I'm black.
Okay. Now, in lieu of that, what you just said, journalism today. Boy, I don't even know what is journalism today.
Yeah.
But again, journalism today comparative to what you guys were doing back then. What is your stance on where the career of journalism will go? Like, how would someone, a young black person or anyone that is trying to be a journalist, I'm a photojournalist, so
right.
A lot of people are saying they're journalists, but nobody wants to go out and do the hardcore journalism work. Everybody wants to do creative stuff like entertainment or whatever, but what is your stance on that?
Okay, a couple of days ago, 2 of the guys that used to work with Soul were over. One, Bobby Holland, was a photographer. We're talking in the early 70s.
Wow, yes.
The other one, Steve Ivory, a writer.
I know who Stephen Ivory is.
You know Stephen
I know
Ivory.
Stephen, yes.
Okay, so we're sitting there talking, and we were just kind of laughing about if there hadn't been a Soul, where would they have gone in the 70s? Who would have hired them that they could have worked on their trade? Where would they have gotten a chance? Another one that wasn't here is Leonard Pitts. Leonard Pitts is a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Wow.
Recipient for a syndicated column for the Herald.
Herald Times?
Herald Times. No, not Herald Times. In Florida.
Oh, okay.
It's the Florida Herald.
Okay.
And he came right out of USC, and we hired him at Soul. He became a writer, and then he became an editor. There's a slew of them.
And so a lot of them are still around.
That's the point I'm making. They're still working and they're still functioning. We had a picture of Archie Ivy, and Archie went on, he was one of our writers. He loved Bill Clinton and the Funkadelic.
Okay.
So he ended up their Minister of Information, left us, went on the road with them, and is still working with them, and is a minister somewhere in Florida now.
Wow.
So just Stan West in Chicago, he's a teacher. And he does a lot of art and programming. And he asked me one day, we talked, he said, how did you know I could write? I had the gift of being able to see talent in people.
Absolutely.
And that was a gift. I mean, it just was
a talent.
gut, an instinct, or whatever. So I would pull the most out of them. And for a young journalist or young person coming up now, I don't have a clue. I don't know this market well enough. I know some of the mature excellent writers that have written for the Washington Post, for Essence Magazine. they're not doing journalism now. They're doing other jobs to make a living and keep a roof over their heads.
Has it always been rough on writers? And because I noticed that unless you're a Pulitzer Prize winner, Nobel Prize winner, you're an author on New York Times best-selling list, how does one make money at doing something that is a natural talent and that they want to do, they love to do it?
It's very hard today. And a lot of stuff it's online. Everything's online. And, I don't know how you pick up on a blog and end up people really following you. How do you make a living? You got to get the numbers up. So somebody's got to know the marketing to get that part of the work done for you. Because if you're creative, most often you're not a marketing person.
No, you're too busy being creative.
Okay? So, book authors. Leonard has a new book out that he came out last year. He's had about 5 books out now. But he couldn't probably get those book deals if he wasn't a syndicated columnist and didn't have years and years
already established.
But now you could self-publish your own book. So there's still those ways now, just like you're doing your own show.
Absolutely.
Where everything else in those days, it was much more, you couldn't have your own equipment to do it.
You'd have to have a whole team, and they'd have to get approved by the
corporate structure.
Yeah.
Writers though have never been given, in my personal opinion, the respect that they really deserve for the work they do until they make that breakthrough, and they're far too few for the kind of work a great many do.
That it is a creative process. It's a creative process. It's an art, just like singing, dancing, and anything else. Same thing with photography.
And until you get that top movie script or something, you still don't make the money that you deserve for the writing.
So in your opinion, journalism and writing in general has to be something that the person is passionate about.
They have to be passionate.
You have to love what you do, because you're not going to make any money. Or if you do, they have, there's an organization online called Funding Overseas or something.
All this funding.
You know what I mean? And what they do is they use travel writers, and they pay you to travel over and do things like that. Do you think those are viable outlets? Or, as you said, not a lot of people can make money at writing, but you're established, and other people that were in that group of people during those times are established and are able to transition. Do you think it's more difficult for people now to have a steady career in just writing over a long period, or is it?
You can have a steady career. It's a matter of what you want as your economic base. I just saw a young lady on Facebook, and she had written this piece about what's going on in the world with the killing and everything, and then she was sitting there with a camera reading it, and it was well done, well delivered, but there's not going to be any compensation fiscally for what she did.
No.
She may get a whole lot of, oh, that's fabulous, oh, you're so talented, you're wonderful, but that doesn't pay the rent.
Bills. That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
That's what my biggest concern is. I mean, it's like the artists now. If they're not a graphic artist, it's hard to make a living.
What do you think about black females, and even more so black females that are journalists or photojournalists, or, I think that we have a few on TV right now, just a few. There's a female black sports interviewer. I saw her on some sports show. I can't remember her name right now. Yeah, she goes to all the sports games and she interviews. But I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
I can't give you really thoughtful answers about today.
Which is fine.
Because it's I don't even try to absorb it anymore. I'm enjoying the fact that I don't have to be in the rat race today. I'm no longer a part of it. And it's okay to relax and not feel the need to be on top of everything.
That you don't have to be in front of the camera.
I can remember sitting down at my desk at Soul in the late 60s and early 70s, and I thought in order to communicate with people, I had to read Time, Newsweek, Billboard, Record World, at least a book or two a month in order to have a conversation with people, plus the newspaper.
Exactly.
So, I was always pushing myself, doing my work, raising my family, trying to maintain a marriage. That's insanity. It's great for a young person, but as an elder, I don't have to.
And also the fact that you have proven that you can survive. Let's go back to raising the family and being married. Not one kid, people, 2 kids, 5 kids she had, and still was able to go to Soul Magazine, go out. And I like the part that which leads me to my last question before we hear about what you're going to do in the future. I like that you had artists like James Brown and people that were willing to be on the cover of Soul Magazine because they had no presence. Do you feel that a magazine, again, would address artists like... Do you think Kanye West would ever be on on the cover of Soul Magazine? Or do you think that they would want to be on those kind of magazines?
Look, I'm going to have to take it back, okay?
Take it back.
Back in the early days,
I love it.
They were delighted to be on the cover of Soul. Something shifted in the 70s, where Soul wasn't the only one. There were other black publications covering black artists. The white market started to open up for black artists. Now, understand, Soul was started because Ebony wouldn't put a James Brown on the cover.
And why?
In those days.
Why?
They wanted a Lena Horne, a Sammy Davis, maybe a Harry Belafonte. So there was no place for your smaller, and James was by no case small, but more grassroots music.
Yeah, not so corporate.
Not sophisticated.
Exactly. I know what you
raw.
Which is what we love. Raw.
Right. And not just what we love, it's what all the rest of those urban desires people love as well. Everybody wants to be urban. It's like, so as Soul was going along, everybody wanted to be on the cover, everybody wanted to cover. Then as time progressed and they sold more records and they had more choices to make, then it became a little harder. Then they started having publicists and record companies and independent PR people that you then couldn't even try to go to the artist.
You couldn't go direct anymore.
You had to go through the publicist. And it was what they wanted and how they wanted to structure it. We saw people live. We were at the concerts. We weren't allowed 10 minutes in front of the stage or 5 minutes to get our... We were on the buses with them. We were on tour.
Everywhere, yeah.
Anywhere they went, we had carte blanche.
Right.
That all left. Now, of course not, a Kanye wouldn't go on the cover. So why should he? He would say, oh, that's a whatever publication. I want to be on...
Rolling Stone.
Well, not even Rolling Stone now. What would he want to be on now? I want to be on the cover of Bazaar.
Complex. It's Complex magazine is the biggest hip hop magazine right now.
Yes.
Complex, and there's a few more that are pretty hip now. However, he's not just on there now. You've got... When did people's families get involved in their entertainment business? Now you've got, like your family was mainly in the background. You were a parent, a wife, and all of that, but you didn't bring that into your work environment so much. Whereas now they're like, oh yeah, it's Kanye and it's Kim Kardashian and it's all her whole family, and now they got the reality shows and all of that. That used to be a no-no. You wouldn't
Osiris, you're talking about a whole nother time though. I mean, where were women in those days?
That's what we want to hear.
Where were women in those days? It's like when we're dealing with this election recently between who's going to be our vice presidential candidate. It was like, why don't all the women just rise up and vote for Hillary? Not because you love Hillary, but to show the power, demonstrate the woman's power. I have to tell this story. I was running Soul, and I always handled the money, the bills, all that heavy end. My husband was more the creative person. I went one time after we bought like maybe 2 or 3 station wagons from the Buick dealer, just a few blocks from here. Knew him, knew everybody there very well. And I went in to get a new car for myself. And he says, well, I can't sell you a car, Regina, without your husband. Well, I slammed out of there. Matter in hell. I don't need his signature. I handle the finances. I went over to Lou Eller's
yeah,
Cadillac.
That's right.
And drove out, and my plan was to get another station wagon, right? I drove out in a brand new 1977 Seville. And that was my stroke of independence, that I don't need my husband's signature to buy or lease a car. Well, in those days, we couldn't even do that.
They are still doing that. That's still, if you do anything that has to do with the government, and let's just say you're a female veteran, and if you are under a certain income bracket, they actually try to force people to get married. or to do something where they could use your husband's income versus just using the veterans. Now, if it were the fact that it was a male veteran, would it be the same? But for the female vets, a lot of them are under the pressure that you can't do anything alone. So I want you to know that a lot of those things still haven't changed.
See, that's painful for me because I know how hard I fought.
Exactly.
To change things. I mean, I ran into a banker, hadn't seen this woman in 30 years. And she said, I remember you. She says, you came in the bank one day and you said, you said, I'm a black woman running a black business and you won't do anything to support me. But if I was a white male, you'd be all over me.
Absolutely.
And she said, I just wanted to clap. And everybody was in a state of shock in the bank. And we all knew you were telling the truth, but there was nothing we could do. And that was in the 70s.
Well,
people have no clue how far, well, we came, but we've given up ground again. I have to
moving
believe,
forward, we've had to give up ground in order to move forward, do you think?
I think we moved forward, and then I think something happened. We got lost, and we got moved back. When you think about the fact that 62 people own the amount of wealth that half of the whole population of America has, this is insanity. This is greed. This shows what's gone awry. Black people, I want to look. I don't believe we're one of the 62, but I'd like to find out. I can't believe who that would be.
I understand it to be, it's the Rockefellers and the Fords and all those people.
But it's old money and new money.
It's old money and new money, and I don't know how they're grooming their kids that are into the so-called urban culture now.
Right.
I don't know what to think about those kinds of things. We have, thank goodness, I am able to sit in front of you, an icon, and get some information to give out to this so-called urban generation about where things have come from. And it almost seems like nobody cares. It's like if you give people a bit of history, they look at you like, what? What are you doing knowing history? I'm like, isn't history a part of school still?
No, they don't care anymore. And they don't have any idea how many shoulders they've stood on. What freedoms that we do have now, that people have now, it was on somebody else's shoulders.
Absolutely.
Mine's on my grandfather's. Both of my grandfathers worked and had their own businesses. One a very successful business, one worked the dump, but it was his business. Okay. And so we've stood on shoulders going up and up and up. But now I have no idea for the masses. My heart is broken for my grandkids.
Absolutely.
And for every young person I see and know. And the fact we're so caught up in the glitz of materialism.
Greed.
People have nice cars and no place to live. I mean, you know, it blows my mind. Entertainers that got cheated out of their publishing, not making a good deal, signing their lives away, that are broke. They're still in the newspaper now, fighting about the rights of who stole what. Marvin Gaye's situation was one. That court case, everybody thinks his family's rich because it got settled in the court, they think. No, it was appealed. So nothing's going on. It's just still...
They're not making a dime, and they will keep them hung up in court for years.
Until they hopefully are dead, as far as they're concerned.
No.
You know, it's just... But it's everywhere. But I gotta say that there was a pleasure and a freedom that we had that people don't have now. We were free. I can sit here and look at you and tell you, I am a free black woman. I am free. Now, not because somebody freed me.
But your mind
myself.
is free.
Yeah.
And your mind is free, and that's the only place in our lives that we can actually have freedom is in our own minds.
Yeah.
Because they may be able to take everything, but like my mom used to say, and as you probably would concur, they can take everything, but they can't control how you think unless you allow it to be so.
That's right.
So in saying that, we have done an extra, because Regina Jones is an icon for those of you, again, that don't know. It's been our ultimate pleasure. I mean, I'm just a pleasure to be sitting in front of her face, okay? And I'm one of those that has used shoulders to step on to get where I am, and proud of it, and have held on to that thing. But in going away and saying goodbye to you, if you had to say one word about soul, the soul, the essence of soul, the word soul, what soul means to you, or a sentence or a phrase, what would that be?
Soul means love.
Soul means love. And it means love across the border.
Across the board, everywhere.
Everywhere. That's what soul is. And so we are very thankful to have had you on camera today and talking to us
Thank
here
you.
again in 15 minutes. It's been Osiris again. Look for me. I'm everywhere. You can find Miss Regina Jones if you want to talk about her or look for her. It'll be online on our 15 Minutes YouTube channel, and you can also go online and do a bit of research. I think you'll find what she has to say and what she's done very interesting. All right, it's been another 15 minutes.
Thank
Bye. I'm going to go around and get on camera.
Good.
With her. Bye.
Bye.